Welcome to another episode of Down the Barrel Podcast with Jimmy and Dino.
And sometimes Jared.
Down the Barrel Podcast is brought to you by the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association
and wolf.report. Wolf.report, a platform dedicated to elevating the voices of Minnesota hunters, trappers, and outdoor enthusiasts. Join us in advocating for responsible wolf management in Minnesota. Share your reports, photos, and stories, and together we will ensure that they are seen by all.
The Minnesota Deer Hunters Association, protecting the future of deer and deer hunting through habitat, education, advocacy, and legislation. Minnesota Bow Hunters, building community, celebrating tradition, driving change. All right, so today we're talking with USA Clay Target League, John Nelson, the league president, correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. Well, good to have you, John.
Thanks for joining us, John. And we have another John on board, too.
He's not going to be talking, though.
He doesn't want to talk. I think we should at least introduce him. And what is your title, Michael John Hubin?
My title is fundraising manager for the league.
Okay, just so everybody knows you are here, too, because it's good to recognize what you do.
We may refer to you here and there, so.
Yeah.
Well,
thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah, thanks. We appreciate the opportunity and appreciate your support featuring the league and the kids. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the league just started, the spring league just started within, a few weeks ago, I'm thinking?
It did, yeah. We just, we finished registration the middle of March. And, countrywide, we've registered over 39,000 student athletes, which is a record number for us.
Wow.
But, the teams are underway with a couple of weeks of practice, and we start competition week here beginning on Sunday. So they'll start with 5 weeks of competitions, followed up by a couple of weeks, and then our state tournaments will kick in June.
Wow, that's a pretty quick season, but...
Yeah, how do you register 39,000 kids? I mean, is that all done centrally with you guys, or is that like spread across various organizations?
Yeah, so what we do is we created our own software package primarily because we couldn't find anything that fit the league. And to be honest, in our early days, it was pretty easy to register a couple hundred kids. But now that we have, 40,000 kids and 70,000 users and 12,000 coaches in the league, our software and the product that we built for this league now requires a much more horsepower, not only just database and servers and everything that we do with it, but we also have a team of 6 developers on staff. So
wow.
Nice.
We're all in on this. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's pretty cool. So where did it all start? How did it all start?
Wow. Well, we're going to start in going back to the 1990s. Okay. And I was hired by an ad agency that was run by Jim Sable. And Jim Sable is the founder of the league. And after Jim and I had worked together for about 10 years, Jim decided to retire and go to the local shooting range, which is by his house in Plymouth, Minnesota. And he was going to spend more time there. And at the tender age of 60 years old, Jim quickly realized that he was one of the younger members at the Plymouth Gun Club. And he realized at that particular moment that, if we don't get some youth involved in this sport, it is going to die. And I think that's been proven true over the past 3-4 decades about participation in shooting sports and hunting and where those numbers have gone. So what Jim did is he started up the youth program at the Plymouth Gun Club, and he got a bunch of kids involved from his church to start being a mentor to teach these kids clay target shooting. Well, what eventually happened is a couple other kids got involved in this youth shooting club, and those were kids from area schools such as Wayzata and Hopkins. And soon Jim had a couple handfuls of these kids that were together and decided, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we could make a little competition out of this amongst schools? And this happened in about 2001. Well, lo and behold, is there was a lot of interest there, and then Jim really thought, hey, I wonder what would happen is if we could make this a high school sport, so these kids could get recognized just like the other kids. And what Jim did is in the 2005, 2006, That's when I got involved a little bit. When Jim asked me, he said, "Hey, I'd like to start up, this shooting league, and it sounds like it can be fun." Now, I didn't have any experience in shooting, and I wasn't a hunter, but I thought, you know what? Anytime you mix kids' guns in schools, that must be a heck of a challenge trying to make that work, right? But what Jim, after talking to a bunch of colleagues at the shooting range, and there's other youth programs out there, Jim quickly realized that if the other shooting programs were doing so well, how come they weren't successful? How come we didn't see the surge in kids at shooting ranges? How come we didn't see the surge in hunting? So Jim did something different. And Jim and I went to the Minnesota State High School League, and we asked them, what would it take to have clay target become a sponsored sport? And God bless is Dave Stead, the executive director at the State High School League, and this is in 2007, pretty much said to us that you have to have the utmost patience because it took lacrosse 7 years to become a school-sponsored sport. He didn't tell us we were crazy. He didn't say, "Are you kidding me? Are you using shotguns and kids?" But what he did is he provided a lot of guidance and documentation about how to make this program look and smell and taste like a high school sport. But what we also did at that same time is we held focus groups. And rather than talk to groups of middle-aged men that were out there in the field every day, is we talked to kids and their parents. And we asked the kids, what would you think if we could provide clay target shooting sports as a sport that is sponsored by the school? What would that do for you? And the kids said over and over the same thing. It'd be great if we could letter in that sport, and it'd be great if we could have yearbook recognition just like other teams at the school. And that's what we went after, and that's then what we started the league at. And so as we sat around a kitchen table at Jim's house in Plymouth, we thought, how are we going to name this league? Are we going to call it Gopher Clay Target Sports? Are we going to call it, Minnesota Clay? What type of names were going there? But what we wanted to do is, because we wanted it to be a school-sponsored sport, we named it very similar to the Minnesota State High School League by calling it the Minnesota State High School Clay Target League. And so by doing that is we really became associated with the schools. And one thing that we've required since day one is we want to have use of the school name to support the team as a club sport. And so we require the schools to just simply say, hey, can we use that school name? Because we wanted all of our teams to have that recognition for the schools. And through some awful hard work and an awful lot of closed doors that worked on our way out from a lot of people saying no, as we finally got our first 3 schools, which was Wayzata, Hopkins, and Orono, to approve a team of 10 kids each. And we started in 2008 with 30 kids and 3 teams and 3 coaches that kicked off the Minnesota State High School Clay Target League.
Huh. That's awesome.
That is pretty cool.
First, I would like to say, I don't know if Jim's still with us, but God bless Jim.
Yeah, it's nice to hear about a good Jim every once in a while.
Right. I mean, he sounds like a super smart guy. And 2, I mean, obviously this was done in the 90s. Times were different in the 90s. I mean, you mentioned lettering and yearbook. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. Do they still do that in schools? I don't even know.
They still letter and yearbooks. But it's tough for the spring sports like that, because I know when I was a photographer and we were, doing the yearbooks and stuff, right. Spring sports, baseball, if they went into the summer, it was tough to get in that yearbook. So they would always, it seemed like they would get into not the current year, but the next year, the following year, depending on the school. Some of them would print them and have them available for that next fall. But otherwise, it was tough to kind of get in it with those late spring sports. But
what I was saying is it started in the 90s. Obviously, that was probably a good thing, right? Because today, I think you'd maybe have a little bit more pushback, wouldn't you?
Well, and this goes back to kind of what we learned in early days and this is just one of probably the key statement that holds true today, guys, that shooting sports never had a shooting sport problem. It had a marketing problem.
Right.
Yep.
And what we looked at that problem was from a marketing perspective is who are the different targets that this activity can affect and who are the prime target audience within this. So if you take our 3 key groups, we'll start with the kids. Or what are they struggle with every day, as it relates to participating in sports. You don't have to be the fastest, the strongest, the tallest. You don't have to be the right gender. If you're the 10th best player on a baseball team, that's not good because you're never going to be able to play. And then we looked at gun clubs and what are they dealing with? Well, they have an aging audience. They can't keep the lights on. They don't make any money if they're not throwing clay targets. They're perceived as, kind of these dark holes that no one's ever been to. And where do you want to go with that? And then lastly, is we looked at what are schools challenged with? You know what? They're dropping sports because of the lack of participation. They have gender-specific sports. I mean, here's a sport that's co-ed and adaptive activities, so kids in wheelchairs participate right alongside the high school cheerleader and the star quarterback.
Right.
And here's an opportunity for these schools to provide a safe activity that doesn't cost them any money. And so when we started to look at these perspectives and we looked at each group and we said, you know what? Clay Target checks off every single box for each one of these groups. Now we just have to take that compelling message and tell the rest of the world. Now, the one thing that we really didn't have much of is we didn't have a lot of data to educate people on how safe the sport was, because there wasn't a lot of kids shooting, out in the industry. And so through the data and through what we've been able to gather and through the activities, now, we're to the point now where we talk, and we're the safest sport in high school. And there's no other sport that can make that claim.
Yeah.
And now we have the data to support that, and it's proven by the participation in the entire league.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I really enjoy about, the Clay Target League is anybody can do it. Like you said, you've got, kids in wheelchairs, you've got the football quarterback, you've got the cheerleader, you've got a farm kid. I've seen all walks of life at these shoots, and it's really cool how everybody can do it, because you don't have to be muscular or anything or real strong, like you do to be a football player or a wrestler, or you don't have to be 6'7" to be a good basketball player, stuff like that. So
you could do it.
So I could do it, yeah. Sort of, with a lot of practice.
Right. Although I've seen some of these kids shoot, you can't shoot. Like
I can't shoot anything like it.
Well, and it's amazing to watch. I mean, these kids are very, very talented
and disciplined for sure.
Yeah, that's where I was going with this. Is that's what always impresses me the most is the level of safety and accountability that the kids have there, because we're there every year, we've got our tent set up and everything. And there's been multiple occasions where, I've seen a kid hand his gun to his dad, right, to put in the case or whatever. And the dad will take it and the kid will start scolding dad, like, Dad, muzzle control, close that, keep the chamber open, Dad. Yeah. We're not on the line right now, So yeah, it's amazing to see. And I honestly think the girls way outperform.
Really?
boys.
Sure. Really?
That's what I've noticed.
Well,
I don't know.
I think a lot of data shows that girls actually shoot better. I know my daughter shoots better than I do.
Really?
That's not hard to do, though.
Well, there's that.
Hey, who got a deer last year?
Your daughter.
No, she did. My son. And I did.
No. So at what grade level can kids get in there?
Yeah, so we start them in 6th grade. So as long as they can get their firearm safety certification, we're the only safety certified sport in school. And so you can't participate in the league until you have that certification. So we provide some alternatives to a hunter education program. We created our own Clay Target certification because not every kid wants to go hunting. So we don't need to teach them how to gut a deer. We need to teach them about how to turn in the right direction on Station 5 when they're done shooting. So there's all these opportunities and these coaches, and you guys know this too from being on the line, these coaches are there to help these kids and teach them. And we all know that kids won't learn any bad habits if you start them the right way on day one. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference between today's young shooters and an older generation, is you got bad habits that are seen out on the field. And so it's proven why it works and how it works, and God bless these coaches and the shooting ranges that are out there supporting these kids in every way possible.
Absolutely.
And I've seen all walks of life for shotguns too. I always perceived clay target shooters as over-unders, or the single shots, and we're talking $2,000-$3,000 shotguns. I see a lot of, Remington 870s, Winchester SXPs, granted there's some spendy shotguns in there too, but just your basic run-of-the-mill semi-auto or pump shotgun that these kids are shooting, and they shoot them very well. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So, there's not a whole lot of barrier to entry from what I can see. If you have a shotgun, you can pretty much do it. Granted, probably a little bit more sophisticated might help out, but it's really cool.
Yeah, we tell everyone, all you have to do is have good hand and eye coordination, and guess who has that? Every kid out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So when they join, do they bring their own gun, right? The schools don't provide them or anything.
They do, yeah. So there's teams that will also have guns that help them through those processes, and obviously there's some shooting ranges that offer some of the rentals for those kids. And so, we don't tell anyone that you have to purchase a shotgun day one going out, because as you guys know, gun fit is key, and we got to make sure shotguns are fitting kids.
Well, yeah, I just assume there's a bunch of kids who probably parents maybe don't shoot that might be interested in it, and that's a nice way for them to get into that if there's some guns available for them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
to at least start with
surge and parents getting involved. Yeah, and so and as you guys can imagine, what's great about our league, and thanks to those that all participate in it, is when a student enters our league in sixth grade, at the age of 12, look at how their physical and their skill attributes change up until their 12th grade, senior in high school. So guess what? They need about 2 or 3 shotguns during that entire trip. And guess who loves us more than anyone? Shotgun manufacturers.
Yes.
Valid point.
Yeah. And so even the league is even responsible for selling 1 firearm per family each year. And so when you look at this league is responsible for moving 40,000 plus firearms each year.
Yeah, that's amazing. So started out in Minnesota and then became USA Clay Target League.
Yeah, what a great story with this. So as Minnesota was growing and doubling in size every year, even to the point where the Minnesota State High School League in 2012 eventually got on board and said, hey, we're going to sanction a tournament, which would be the first one in the country to do that. So God bless the State High School League for doing that, and they've been doing that ever since. But where we started to get wind and where this went to is we were getting an awful lot of people from the borders trying to jump over into Minnesota, participate on high school teams. And we just, obviously weren't allowing that. And so in 2012, we got a phone call from Tommy Milner, the CEO of Cabela's. And he said to us, and I say us, there was only 3 of us working with the league at the time, Jim, his wife Sharon, and myself. And he said, hey, I don't know what's going on in Minnesota, but there's 3,400 kids that are shooting in Minnesota. And he says, I want to know what's going on and how is that happening? So Tommy invited us down to Sidney, Nebraska, down to Cabela's corporate. And we got to sit with him and his executive team to talk about what's been happening in Minnesota and how we've created this product to get these young people involved in clay target shooting sports. And it was at that point when we said to Tommy, said, now what we'd like to do, and with Minnesota's success, is we'd like to repeat this 49 other times in all the other states. And Tommy said, let's go. and Tommy approved a grant for us to start up the USA High School Clay Target League. And in that next year, we started up Wisconsin. The year after that, we started North Dakota, South Dakota. Then we started Kansas. Then we started 4 other states, and then 5 more. And today we have athletes that represent 44 different states, and we have leagues in about 37 or 38 of them. And it's been absolutely amazing, all because of that one meeting that started at Cabela's in 2012.
That's great. I mean, I love to hear that.
Yeah, that is so cool. Mm-hmm. And just how, and I was looking at the website and kind of looking at the numbers, you know, for
The growth
per year,
numbers,
the growth numbers. So like in 2012, you had 1,700 participants, 57 teams. So obviously that was all Minnesota, you know, the way
Yes.
it looks. And then in 14 is when 13, 14 is when it jumped to 2 states, 7,000 participants, 191 teams. And then we're going to, you know, and then it like doubles and triples. In 2017, you're at 20,000 participants, 615 teams in 15 states.
Right.
And then, like I said, to date, 44 states and, you know, 40,000, you know, participants. I mean, that is amazing.
It's impressive to say the
Yeah.
least.
In 20 years to have that many,
That much
you know,
growth.
that much growth.
Right. And you
know.
guys kept up and did a great job with it. That's mind-boggling.
Well, and you throw in a COVID in 2020 that shut us down to zeros.
Right.
Yep.
and
Right.
and the ability to just kind of start things up again and get these kids outdoors. It's we say often, guys, we say it took us 15 years to become an overnight success.
Well, definitely true. I mean, the numbers don't lie.
So is Minnesota the largest state?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so with Minnesota, we have about 350 teams and about 11,500 athletes. So what, in comparisons, I mean, you think about this here in our home state, Clay Target ranks as the 7th or 8th largest participating sport in Minnesota. And that's out of 45 activities and clubs and sports. Wow. And so when you have those numbers, we are actually larger than boys and girls high school hockey combined.
Wow.
In this state of Minnesota. And so this is the same type of activity that we're working towards and getting to other states. So similar in Minnesota with the State High School League and their support is now we're trying to work with other state high school athletic associations to repeat the same success that we've had here in our state.
Mm-hmm. So what's the second largest state participant? Is it Wisconsin or?
Right. It's Wisconsin. Yep. Wisconsin is that second largest. Then we probably run into Kansas and North Dakota, South Dakota.
I knew you were looking for Kansas.
And even crazier yet, New York is one of our larger states also.
That's what I was going to say. I remember when we were at Game Fair, John, you were headed to New York after that, or, you know, to do some marketing and stuff. So.
Yeah, so we have state representatives out there. And so what's great about us and within the industry is we have an awful lot of people that'll contact us and say, this will never happen in California. This will never happen in New York. And we say, guess what? It already is happening. So, you know, but those were the type of people that we talked to in 2007, 2006. You'll never get this approved in schools.
Yeah.
And so if you rely on those people to make your decisions for you, we'd be in the same spot as we were back in the early 2000s. Today, even worse off than what it's ever been. And now we have shooting ranges. I mean, you look at our home state, there's been, $10 million plus invested into shooting ranges within the state through grants and improvements to help host these kids and these teams. We have shooting ranges that are hosting 15, 16, 17 teams each week, for 6 weeks. Imagine what that's doing to their bottom line for this.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was the reason is when Jim sat there and looked at the Plymouth Gun Club and said, how is this going to survive? We're not making clubs survive. We're making them thrive. And that's what our industry needs.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and it goes beyond even the gun clubs themselves, MDHA, we're the big, what are we, platinum sponsor of the
Platinum, yep.
The high school tournament. But also our chapters support a lot of their local clay teams. And we see a lot of participation back from those teams as well, volunteering at banquets, volunteering for highway cleanup or habitat projects. And it's a really great symbiotic relationship that we've been able to kind of cultivate with these kids, and that's all thanks to you guys for having a crazy idea about bringing guns to school.
Right.
Yeah, but it is, guys. But you have to realize too, and MDHA's been involved with the league for a long time. I mean, you go back in those early days that we first were holding tournaments up in Alexandria, and I think our first year in Alexandria, there were 800 kids. And, we're sitting there trying to find ways to find pennies and nickels to help offset the cost for the kids so they didn't have to pay so much to participate. And that philosophy hasn't changed today, is how do we keep these costs low so these kids can get a once-in-a-lifetime type experience. And now these kids are enjoying the world's largest shooting sport event, the world's largest, not Minnesota, not the country, not Canada, the world. And when 8,000 kids come into the city of Alexandria over 9 days, it's an experience that not many people in this world can talk about. And that's wonderful for these kids and their families.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It is awesome. If you haven't been there, just go for a day.
Right.
And just watch and listen. And let me tell you, honestly, those kids are some of the most respectful kids that I've ever been around, in our booth and everything. And it's just awesome. And then to go down the line and watch. And it's crazy because you're shooting at Highway 94 is in the background of the Alexandria Shooting Sports Complex. It's just crazy, but I mean, it's awesome to see and to experience, and to hear shotguns going off all day long. I mean, it's crazy. It's so cool.
It really is an impressive event.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been, thanks to all the sponsors who are making that happen, and we've created, really kind of like a game fair-like event, as we talked about earlier, because we want these kids to be exposed to the other brands and the other products in the outdoor industry, so they can try other things. I mean, not every one of our kids hunts, and so what a great opportunity to learn about deer hunting,
Right.
in the great state that we have. And that's the best place to have that one-on-one interaction, where you guys can share your stories with these young people and talk about those experiences and get them involved. And it's so important because, these kids, when they participate in a school-sponsored sport, over a third of the kids do not participate in any other sport. And as you guys just mentioned, those kids that do participate in these sports do volunteer. They stay away from drugs and alcohol. They tend to go to college. They do an awful lot of good, and all we need is more kids to be doing that.
Right.
Exactly.
You teach them how to safely handle a firearm too.
Right. And, some people may say, well, they're just, shooting clay targets. What does that have to do with deer hunting? Well, it's a lot, honestly, because of firearms.
It's the next generation.
Yeah, target acquisition. Like you said, the eye-hand coordination. I mean, it's and just because they're a clay target doesn't mean that that's what they're going to stick with, or they're going to experience everything, that has to do with firearms. And that's the cool thing about it, too.
Right. That's one of the cool things.
One of the cool things, yeah. And so, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm looking at our notes here. Is it true there's not been a single injury reported since 2001?
Yeah, nothing. You think about this, guys. We've had over 300,000 student athletes through our program. They've pulled the trigger more than 350 million times, and we've never had a reported injury. So imagine trying to use those same numbers and trying to do that with football and any other sport in high school. And guys, this comes up, when we sit in front of school board meetings and when you have school officials saying, "Whoa, wait a minute, what? This involves a shotgun?" No way. But when you challenge school officials and their education community about the safety that we go through within the sport, and then I ask them, "What's your injury rate of your sports that you currently have?" No one has the answer to it because they don't want to know the answer.
Right.
Yep.
And so once we get past that, then it simply makes sense why you should add this activity to your school curriculum.
Yeah. It's impressive.
It really is. And then you guys have obviously high school league, homeschool league, and then college league as well.
Wow, college. It's going crazy. We did probably one of the smartest things ever is we launched our college league 2 months before COVID started. and so, but But what we realized is every year, and in these past years, I mean, we graduated over 10,000 seniors from high school that all like to chase a clay target. And so our thought is, hey, why not continue that on the college within the same system, the same scoring, the same everything that we do in high school that's made so successful, and let's take that to the college level. And so we started up our college league in order to pretty much offer clay target. It's kind of an intramural sport, but we do virtual competitions. And so these colleges can compete across the country in divisions that are kind of their own size of teams and do it in a sport that they love in both a spring and a fall participation. And our college league is going crazy. It increases by 30% a year. We are actually also working with the Minnesota Athletic Conference, College Athletic Conference here that has 2-year technical colleges, that participate in clay target only. And so they are the only National Junior College Athletic Association region in the country that offers clay target. And they have 18 schools. We had 250 student athletes participate in clay target as a college league. And in fact, we just added St. Cloud Tech today, I saw. So, I mean,
Nice.
again, that's growing too. And so the demand for the sport at the collegiate level continues to grow because what's great is 30% of the kids that join the college league came from our high school league.
Yeah.
40% of the coaches that coach the college league teams came from our high school league. So again, we're continuing this passion, getting these kids and these people involved. And now once they graduate from college, what is the rest of the shooting sport community doing for these young people?
Right.
Yeah.
So, John, I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but are you still working on growing the high school league? I mean, across the country? I mean, there's still places you're working, you're pushing?
Well, we got about 2,000 high schools in our league, and there's a total of about 27,000 high schools in America. So we got a ways to go.
Wow.
What's crazy, guys, is we receive about 2,000 inquiries a year to start up teams, and we work with those people all across the country in order to get these teams started. And to be honest, it's not the easiest path to take for many. Some of them are like, hey, I've seen it. I see my neighboring school do it. I want to do it.
Yep.
But others will take years to get teams started because it may take a school board changes in order to get something like that approved.
Right.
Or there may be some people that just don't support it. But we keep on going. And so where we've seen the success, and it all started with Minnesota, is when we started a team in Fergus Falls. We saw all the schools around Fergus Falls High School start to come on board and grow. And it's working the same way throughout the country. And so throughout our college league, throughout our high school, and then also our homeschool league. We started up our homeschool league because over 20 states in the country don't allow homeschool students to participate on their high school sport team.
Right.
And so if we didn't provide that opportunity for them, then let's do it on the homeschool side so they can enjoy the same things that high school kids have.
That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So do you have a lot of urban areas that participate too? I mean, like, I know you said Wayzata and stuff, and to me that sounds urban, but I'm from northern Minnesota, so that doesn't mean much.
We have suburban and then we have the urban, but for instance, in Minnesota, we have the St. Paul school district as a team. So
Yep.
we have coaches that are working with their 7 high schools, public high schools, to have those kids come together as a St. Paul team throughout their school district. Minneapolis School District, is we have a couple of their high schools, that are in our league.
Okay.
And so it takes an awful lot of time, but the challenges there is we haven't built a clay target range in downtown Minneapolis anytime soon.
True story.
And so to get these kids to travel 30 minutes to a shooting range, in the metro area is not easy to do.
Okay.
And so those are the challenges that we face. But we try to get these kids out. There's coaches that help this. We have the inner city coaches that are helping suburban coaches in other high schools. But yeah, out of the 500 plus high schools in Minnesota, there's 375 of them that have clay target teams.
Well, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, I saw My high school last year, first time I saw them there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it kind of made me sad that we didn't have a team when I went there. Think how much better of a shooter I'd be.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right. I mean, you could have shot after you broke your leg in hockey. I mean, you could have done this.
That's true, right? Instead, I had to do Nordic skiing.
Yeah.
I suppose that is kind of a challenge for the suburban areas, just by not having gun ranges, trap ranges close by.
Yeah.
It's the number one reason why our league doesn't grow any faster than what it is because of access.
Yep.
I mean, we have teams that are over 100 kids per team. And as you can imagine, trying to get 100 kids to shoot at each week, at a shooting range, it takes a little bit of work. It takes a few extra days, and it takes some long days, and God bless the coaches that help make that happen. And so, the Minnesota legislation, and they recently, I believe, also are approving additional grants to expand capacity at the shooting ranges. I've been trying to get a large shooting range built in this state for the past 20 years, and they just can't get any traction whatsoever. And as you guys know, they tried to do that up in Grand Rapids, about 15 years ago, and they're still about at the same level of activity as they were back then. So it's a shame, because we are the poster child of success in the country. I wish we would have more support, from our legislative leaders in order to provide a world-class facility. We host national championships outside of the state and bring that economic impact to those areas, because we can't host them here in our state because we don't have a facility large enough. And so we're taking millions and millions of dollars somewhere else rather than keeping it in our home state.
That's too bad. You hear that, Minnesota?
Right? Get on it.
Build a facility already.
Build a big one.
Grand Rapids.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Where we are right now.
Oh.
So fundraising, like you said, is obviously a big part, because we haven't asked the question. So other than providing a shotgun, or you come with a shotgun, what does it cost a kid? I mean, they're shooting 1,000 rounds through a season, probably more, honestly. I don't know. I mean, they shooting, do you shoot a whole pallet?
What's really interesting is, we have our seasons, but part of what we do, and we're data freaks here at the league, because we want to understand this audience because no one else does. And so when we ask the athletes and their families, is how many cases of shotgun ammunition do you shoot a year? And it's over 7 cases a year.
Wow.
So now if you take 7 cases times 50,000 student athletes, you're going through a few cases of ammunition a year.
Yeah.
And as you guys know, the sport has not gotten much cheaper, so at least things have stabilized a little bit. So where we see kids participating in the league is you'll see everything from free participation for the kids, and then we'll see $400 or $500 in fees that the team will charge these kids to be involved in the season. So a lot of it depends on how much fundraising do they want to do at their local level. So they're no different than other teams out there. But what makes these young people different is these are audiences that are outdoor and conservation partners, and other people have been craving to help. And you guys know this too, because you do it, yourselves. And so here it's a great time for those groups to invest, not spend, but invest in these young people in the future, because they are the future conservationists. They are the ones that are going to help manage our wildlife. And they are future leaders of shooting ranges. And so if we can keep these costs low and the teams do a great job at this, then they can get more kids to participate. But yeah, I'd say on average, kids are probably paying between $300 and $400 per season to participate.
And I would think that'd be pretty normal for an athletic meet.
Sounds pretty.
I mean, I've heard hockey
cheap to me.
That's less than a third of the cost of a pair of hockey skates.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
I mean, my daughter's
you can't get a hockey
color
stick
guard, and it
for
costs
that
way more
anymore.
than that.
I know. I was going to say my daughter was in marching band, and it was just a hair under or a hair over that.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So
Great deal. Great deal.
I bet. Let's see, ammo manufacturers love you guys
I would hope
Federal,
so.
Winchester, everybody.
Well, you're in pretty well with Federal, right?
Yeah, what's great about the manufacturers, and they've really stepped up in recent years, is they all are pretty much offering now youth shooting sport programs. So teams can order pallets
Yep.
of ammunition at a pretty good discounted price, and the shipment. So some of our challenges is because our season starts so early, is it doesn't necessarily meet the selling season for ammunition and fulfillment. But Federal's had a youth program pretty much since the day started here, in offering really affordable cases of ammunition. As you can imagine, it's kind of a challenge to raise those funds early to try to cut a check for $20,000 worth of ammo for a couple pallets. But they're coming around, and I think they see the value of the youth, and would, again, like everyone else, is they're investing in that future also.
Yep.
Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah. Disciplines. I assumed that it was only just trap shooting, but as I learned after looking on the website, was there 4 different disciplines there? Trap shooting, skeet,
There
sporting
is.
clays, and 5-stand?
Yeah, so we started off with trap for a number of years, and it's been kind of fun to see how the league has just evolved, because we started with trap in our early days simply because there were more trap fields in the state, and we could get more access to these schools. But also, trap is typically an easier sport than the other 3 shooting disciplines, and because 60% of our kids that come in the league in its first year have never shot at a clay target before.
Wow.
So they're spending a couple practices shooting straightaways just to get used to, kind of the process. But what was great is as we started our spring season, is we had some coaches that said, hey, why don't we start a fall season? Because it'd be a great prerequisite to the hunting season. It'd be great for the kids coming into school new to be exposed to sports. So let's have a short season in that. And our first fall season in Minnesota, we had 200 kids. I think this last fall nationwide, we had 15,000 kids.
Wow.
And that was just 10 years ago. And so, again, the demand is there. But when we started offering other sports, as we see the kids are not just doing one sport or the other, but they're expanding that sport. And what's nice about it, too, is it's also involving other shooting ranges in the state. So if a shooting range doesn't have trap, hey, you can host a high school team at your 5-stand, or whatever club you offer for a club. So again, it's got more clubs involved, and it's helping them on their bottom lines also, and it provides a different skill set for these kids.
For sure.
Yeah, I've never actually been shooting officially at a trap, course or anything. I've done sporting clays. I've done that. That was always pretty cool. I enjoy that, but I've never done skeet or even 5-stand myself.
No, I mean, to be honest, the only clays I ever shoot are if I get a new shotgun and I need to go get used to the fit or whatever, I go make my dad throw some clays in the air and I shoot them.
Yep.
So, and showing my ignorance a little bit here, shotguns. Are these kids shooting 20s or 12s, or does it matter? I mean, is there a rule?
82% are shooting 12 gauge. We probably have 17% that are shooting 20 gauge, and we got a few people out there shooting 410s, which are the real small kids.
Oh, wow, okay.
You really do love your data.
There, but,
yeah, he does like data, doesn't he? He knows it all, too.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but and again, this is the beauty of the sport, is you can enter, as just a 70-pound, small kid, when you're in 6th grade to come in the league and to see them grow within that and see the shotguns that they have. And, you hear this, you visit tournaments, and you guys have been there, and when you talk about, hey, what type of shotgun are you shooting? And, well, it's either, somebody else's $20,000 Krieghoff, or it's grandpa's gun that he's been using for hunting for so many years.
Yep.
And,
right.
I've seen state tournament champions shooting grandpa's shotgun.
That's good to hear.
And again, it has to do with that hand-eye coordination and the 6 inches between your 2 ears.
That's awesome. So, Dean, again, showing my ignorance. We have local teams, don't we?
We do. Rapids has a team.
Yeah.
Yep. Actually,
So
Rapids.
why aren't our
Hill
boys
City,
shooting on
Reamer.
it?
I know. I was actually going to look into it
Yeah.
next year and see if they
Yeah,
really
'cause-
want to get into it.
Right. They should be able to now.
They should.
Right.
I have a nice CZ over and under 20 gauge that he actually got into shooting this year, and shoots pretty decent, but he just needs more practice. And so I think it'd be great to get him into it.
Right. No doubt.
You know,
So is that what most kids are shooting, over under side by side? I mean, is it semi? I mean, what's the vast majority of it?
yeah.
What are you guys seeing?
You know,
Does it matter?
it's a good question. I think if you see the over unders for obviously for those kids that are participating in the other clay target shooting sports, because you need it for certainly for the rest of them, and because we're only doing singles, it's not required to be pulling the trigger twice on that. So I think you see probably the more skilled shooters that are with over unders, but my goodness, I mean, you stand on the end of that field and you see 1,000 kids with shotguns and gun racks, and if you want to find something there, it's there. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, this will be my first year actually going down to Alexandria, so I'm
Right.
looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's really neat. Like you said, you see all walks of life of shotguns and everything. From $20,000 shotguns down to the hand-me-down.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, and you shoot that all season, and it works. And kudos to these gun manufacturers for these kids to be. I mean, I'm sure there's issues, here and there because they're
With the fit, yeah.
Yeah, well, and even the longevity, because they're pumping a lot of rounds through these guns, But and it's really neat to see them walk around, with semis and over unders and in the pumps, and yeah.
Well, if it's your first time going down there, be prepared to simultaneously be extremely impressed and excited about the future of shooting sports in the state of Minnesota, and also feel really bad about yourself.
Well, as long as I don't have to shoot, nobody has to know that.
Well, yeah, right. But you see some little 40-pound sixth grader walk up there and just outshoot anything you could ever hope to accomplish.
And shooting a 12 gauge.
Right.
Hey, that's all good. Sounds
You
good.
know what,
to me.
guys? But what's even cooler yet is, and I'll put it to an experience when I was standing behind a kid that was shooting up in Alexandria, and my goodness, there was probably 100 family members that were behind the line and watching this kid shoot, and everyone is anxious watching this kid's last couple shots. And I'm like, oh, he must be running 100 straight here. I mean, he must be doing pretty well. And the kid hit his last two targets, and I'm just watching, and I'm waiting for the 100 patch to come out. And it was the first time that the kid hit double digits in targets. And so it didn't matter whether he shot 100 or whether he shot a 10, is the family and the coaches were equally as excited in that experience for that kid.
That's great.
And he comes off the line and he's crying and he's all emotional, and it's like, that's why we're here. That's why you guys are
Absolutely.
there. That's why we're here. That's why we work 14-hour days, on those days and running up down fields. But that is why we do what we do.
Yeah.
And those kids are going to be doing this because of you and down the road.
Right.
Oh, guys, I'd love to take credit for it, but I don't stand in the rain when kids are shooting. I don't deal with the parents in the schools, and I'm not pumping the sump pump out of the house and filling the house. I don't do that. The coaches do that,
Right.
and we couldn't do it without their support. And in the league, we have 11,000 coaches, on team staff that are helping these kids. Those are the people that deserve the credit, not me.
They are some very impressive people. I know some of our members are coaches of their local teams, and it's always good to talk to them. My favorite part of the whole trap shoot, the state, why can I never get this right? State high school championship?
Yes.
Something like that. The Alexandria tournament.
That sounds good.
Yeah, but I love to find the coaches that you watch them pull up and you see them unload a grill out of the back of their truck. That's the coach you want to be friends with because you're getting a good lunch.
Right. They're there for the day. They've done it before.
Yep.
They know.
Yeah, I weighed 150 pounds when I started.
Yeah, no, it is really neat. It's great what you guys have done over the years.
Yeah.
Leaps and bounds, and yeah, I mean it's so cool. And we've got a trap range just down from the office, and I think they shoot on Tuesdays because it's great. You know when trap season's here, because all you hear shotguns going off from 3 o'clock all the way through.
Yep.
It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. No, it's kudos to you guys. I mean, it had to be rough. It has to be rough even still to this day to keep going and expanding.
It's not.
Go ahead, John.
It's not as rough as it used to be, simply because, and we say this line all the time to a school that's pondering about why should I get involved or why should I approve this and why we should do this. We say, you don't have to worry about being a frontiersman because 2,000 schools beat you to it. But it was the first 20, that were really hard. The first 6, the first 3, I mean, they were all hard in our early days. But I think like any other business is once you're able to refine your product and provide your messaging that goes to your audience. And if you stay focused, there's people that ask us, hey, maybe you should start adult leagues and maybe you should do this and maybe you should run shooting ranges and all this. And it's like, no, we got 23,000 high schools left to go. We're going to be busy for a while.
Absolutely.
And John, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, from a coaching perspective, John said it isn't nearly as hard as it used to be, and he's 100% right. But from a coach's standpoint, for me, it's really, really cool to see the team that I used to coach now has 4 student athletes that I coached from 6th grade through 12th grade who are now coaching on the team as young adults.
Yeah.
So we're going full circle, and it's really exciting to see that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Anything else you guys want to add? Call to action? Any holdout states that you want us to, start making some phone calls?
Right. We'll push for you.
What's great about this is we have thousands and thousands of people that are out there pitching the teams and pitching the leagues in every corner of the state. I think we're actually going to add our first Alaska school here pretty soon.
Oh, wow.
And so we already have an awful lot of volunteers that want to go up there and host their state tournament, up in Alaska. But we actually had a team from Hawaii, participate in our league last year. And there's actually three trap fields in Hawaii. But if we can get the message out, and this is when we talk about the struggles that every group is having in trying to get young people involved in the outdoors and the difficulties that we have doing that, we have the complete opposite problem. Is we're having challenges trying to keep up with it, trying to get these kids out there, trying to get access to the shooting ranges, trying to get more shooting ranges. If you've tried to build a shooting range recently, it's not an easy task to do. And for too many years, as these shooting ranges closed down and they were pushed over with dirt and put new houses on there, and it's troublesome to see that. And so our call to action is just simply is get a team started. It's the greatest thing that'll ever come to your education community. It's these teams grow. We have teams that are 150 kids in size. Imagine what that does to that education community and what it teaches the rest of the school and the accomplishments of these young people. And it's a different set of kids in most cases.
Right.
And you give these kids an opportunity to showcase their talent that's been hidden underneath a rock forever. Is wow, now all of a sudden these kids are rock stars because they're doing it with a shotgun. I mean, how cool is that? And so we got to find a way to continue that. I think if we can get more people to hold shotguns, then we have to worry less about Second Amendment rights, because you don't have to teach Second Amendment rights to somebody holding a shotgun. They're already practicing that.
Right.
And so we just got to get more young people to hold them, and we got to keep up our safety record, and we got to keep having fun doing it. So the second it stops being fun, then there's going to be some concerns. But right now, all of us, and I'm just going to speak on behalf of our staff, who've all put in long hours, and God bless them, because they're so passionate about this, and they've all been with us for a long time that, they also are feeding this wheel because they like seeing success in numbers, and that's how we measure it.
So how can people find out more about USA Clay Target League?
Go to usaclaytarget.com and you can click on Start a Team to get a new team started. Or if you want to find a team that you want to participate on, simply click on your state and your high school league or the college league to find out where there's a team near you. So we have interactive maps and listings of the teams who currently have, or schools that have teams. And kids can get involved in that way. And we do everything we can possible to get a new team started up. So we just need somebody to ask, and we can help them from there.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Alexandria shooting it.
Yeah, and that's coming up in June.
Right, just right around the corner.
Yeah, Minnesota State High School Clay Target Championship.
There you go. Much better than I did.
I had my cheat sheet.
Lots of words there.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with us today and everything you do for youth and the shooting sports.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
More than anybody, really.
And guys, we want to say thank you to you guys and the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association for your continued support. It's been a good 12 plus years that support is done, and thanks to your support, you guys are seeing what's happening with that. And so we greatly appreciate your not only helping the teams and helping the league, but getting these young people in the outdoors, which is most important.
Hey, we're happy to do it. And to be honest with you, it's pretty much the easiest call to action we send out to our chapters every year.
It is. Yeah.
Anyone want to support the State High School Trap League, and the money comes in.
The money comes in, the volunteers. We get more volunteers for the Alexandria Trap Shoot than any other sports show or show we put on.
All of them combined.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So everybody wants to be a part of it. So it's really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, make sure you tell everyone thank you on our behalf.
Absolutely.
We sure will. Well, we want to thank you guys, and
continue it. Please keep it growing.
Yep.
Keep it growing.
Will do.
Awesome. Thanks
All
a
right,
lot,
guys.
John.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Thanks for joining
being
us.
on. You guys have a good evening.
The Minnesota Deer Hunters Association has been building our hunting and conservation legacy over the past 40 plus years through habitat, education, advocacy, and legislation in Minnesota for Minnesota.
The Minnesota Deer Hunters Association and wolf.report proudly sponsor this podcast. However, please note that the opinions, topics, and guests featured may not necessarily align with the views, beliefs, goals, or mission of our sponsors.